Hello everyone, welcome back to Mephisto's Corner, a podcast where we discuss the unexplainable, the paranormal, and our morbid reality. Thank you for joining us as we add fuel to your nightmares. I am your host, Ready to Glare, with my co-host, Jacob. In this week's episode, we will be discussing the Antioch Gates of Hell and the Empire Mine Road.
Yeah, these supposed gates of hell and the terrain behind this metal barricade, known as the Empire Mine Road, is riddled with stories of myths, death, and blood. Is this place haunted? Well, we hope to give you enough information to where you can answer that question for yourself. So let's get spooky.
In the city of Antioch, California, exists the desolate trail called Empire Mine Road. Antioch is actually one of the oldest towns in California. Anyway, alongside the road leading is a seemingly innocuous gate with concrete slabs, a metal frame, and graffiti. Locals call it the Gates of Hell, as it is rumored that if you pass through them, bad things will happen to you. Beyond these gates might be hell on earth. There are many accounts of paranormal phenomenon happening at this location, and because of the myths surrounding this location, the infamy of the Antioch Gates of Hell has become something of an urban legend itself.
Literally, enter at your own peril, just like this podcast. Anyway, the gates of hell are said to be the entrance to the realm of the dead, or the house of Hades, according to Bible scholars. Moral character makes no difference. We are all designated to enter this realm when we depart from this life and descend into darkness.
Okay, so totally not being dramatic at all. Sounds like Tumblr poetry.
So, bad poetry?
Duh. The Antioch Gates of Hell and Empire Mine Road are said to be slew to all sorts of paranormal activity, ranging from floating orbs of light, or, as Zach Bagans says, light anomalies, to ghosts, demons, and there are even supposed sightings of possible cryptids. In this account, written by a user called Christy on hauntedplaces.org, says, "A group of us went over the gates, which was a cement block at the time. Everyone got scared and ran back except me and my husband, and we were walking on some sort of what used to be a road. We were surrounded by dark, and all of a sudden it felt like people ran up on us and rocks were being thrown at us." Clearly this person does not use punctuation, so I apologize for how this is read. "We ran back to the car, also on Marsh Creek Road. One night we were parked on the side of the road, and something what I thought was a mountain lion slammed down on the trunk of the car. I quickly rolled up my window and locked the door. My husband looked back and he yelled, 'Did you see that?' I didn't, but he said whatever animal landed on the trunk got up and walked like a human into the hills."
I've noticed that many people sharing these stories, whether it be themselves or friends, when they went beyond the gates of hell, they felt a sense of dread. So perhaps this explains why the friends of this couple could not go beyond a certain point before getting too scared. It is common in these experiences for people to feel like they are, quote-unquote, run up on, or that they feel like many hateful eyes are upon them. And this is not the first time I've heard the sensation of rocks being thrown at people who visit the Empire Mine Road, though I think it should be said that a lot of teens go here to drink and do drugs, and they never really experience these feelings. A lot of locals call bullshit about the hauntings, and the worst part about it is that it used to be used for drug use and other criminal activity. Though there are many who truly believe this specific trail and region is a hotspot.
Yeah, the idea of haunting seems to come from the strange history of Empire Mine Road. Legends said there is a haunted slaughterhouse, an abandoned insane asylum, and a gravity hill beyond the gates of hell. Apparently, the Gates of Hell and Empire Mine Road were actually the gates to what was supposed to be a gated community in the 1950s.
Yeah, I actually read the same thing and also saw that the plans were abandoned because the death of a group of children, which we'll actually talk about later.
Also, it should be noted that the road has since been closed for quite some time, so vehicles can no longer drive here, but of course, when will that ever stop people from coming to explore this road without vehicles?
So, you could say it used to be a highway to hell. Okay, let's cover the insane asylum first, because I know this one seems to be the most contested.
Okay, so supposedly there's an old and abandoned insane asylum, or at least the remains of one, at the very end of Empire Mine Road. The asylum has a history of abuse, lobotomy, and brutal murder. Basically, your average haunted insane asylum you've seen in many, if not every, different horror movie. It is said that the spirits haunting this road are there because of this asylum. As mentioned, things are said to be thrown at people are being pushed, and even blood-curdling screams have been heard. These screams are assumed to be of those who suffered at the insane asylum.
Some people believe that the asylum itself is a portal to hell, basically like a gate within a gate. Gateception, as I like to call it. This place is not filled with nice spirits. These spirits are said to be evil in nature, and one could possibly say that these could be demonic in nature, and perhaps the violence that occurred in the insane asylum were caused by possession.
I feel like mental institutions are always associated with shit like this. Granted, many of them do have a horrific history, but I think they appeal to the idea of evil spirits because of the negative connotation associated with mental health back in the day, hence the term insane. Back then, there wasn't great treatment for mental illnesses as they weren't really understood, so yeah, this is convenient.
Yeah, they were also called lunatic asylums, madhouses, lots of controversial treatments. I mean, many of these patients were abandoned by their own families. They were forgotten. That said, I did not find any records of a mental institution in Antioch, California, nor did I find any records of treatments in Antioch, but maybe I didn't research well enough. Who knows?
Well, locals say the mental institution thing is just a myth. The supposed remnants of the mental institutions seem to just have been the foundations of the abandoned housing development we mentioned before.
So, safe to say, I think the mental institution is quashed because we can't find any records, and even locals are saying there's nothing there.
Yeah, and plus when nothing's there, what can you put of creepy? A mental asylum where people got fucking lobotomies, of course.
Convenient. Well, still makes for a good ghost story at least, but seems like that is all it is, so let's move on.
One of the other creepy locations near Empire Mine Road is the Slaughterhouse. Sounds creepy, right?
An insane asylum and a slaughterhouse definitely seem to be hitting all the classic horror landmarks in this episode. But yes, slaughterhouses are quite creepy.
Well, turns out it's actually a granary silo, as in where you store grains, so probably a little less creepy. Anyway, slaughterhouse sounds more dramatic, so we can pretend that's accurate. The story is that there is the ghost of a prior groundskeeper. The most common things said to happen at this location are clanking noises and the feeling of being watched. There are also rumors that KKK meetings happen there now, as well as satanic rituals.
I actually read on a post from someone who runs a paranormal page that he spoke with the owner of the slaughterhouse, quote-unquote slaughterhouse, and the owner confirmed it was in fact a granary silo. So we don't even need to pretend it's a slaughterhouse at this point. But I've never seen anything about the KKK in my research, so it's like, wait, the KKK, aren't they supposed to be dressed like ghosts of Confederate soldiers? So is this what people are seeing? Just a bunch of white racist assholes dressed up in sheets? You know, who knows. But I have heard about the satanic rituals that have taken place, but there really is no hard evidence that I can find. I'd assume that the legend of the road and the gates of hell probably entices individuals to go there to do the rituals, as opposed to the rituals causing the slew of activity said to be going on there.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that people have had... I mean, it's plausible people would do satanic rituals there.
Yeah, like, what I would surmise is that people go there hoping to conjure shit, whether it's via Ouija board or actual ritual. So, going back to the ghost of the old groundskeeper real quick. Apparently, it is an old man that walks the grounds and does his duties of when he was alive, so he's not evil. Some say you can hear footsteps behind you, but that's about it.
What I read was that there are some eyewitness accounts that have seen a man covered in blood stumbling down the road moaning for help until he reaches the gates in which he cannot cross. In a story published by a woman called Sarah Krupp of the Contra Times, an article I have yet to find, I might add, that apparently there was a murder that occurred in 1995. The story goes that he was murdered by a stabbing from a pissed-off ex-girlfriend. His throat had been slit, his jaw had been broken, and he was stabbed in the back. Of course, once again, I could not find any record of the murder or the article, so the events and reasons of this murder are unknown. Though there are also accounts of people seeing a woman with a bloody knife who screams in rage, stalks around, and even hovers above the ground.
So how did she die then?
Heartbreak, maybe?
She sounds like a stereotype, a convenient one. Doubt she ever lived, doubt that murder ever happened.
Yeah, well, either way, some people say maybe that was the old groundskeeper, perhaps, or maybe just a murder that happened in the area close to the slaughterhouse.
Or none of them ever existed. So, another strange happening in the desolate stretch of land is the existence of a supposed gravity hill. For those who do not know what a gravity hill is a seemingly mysterious place where cars drift uphill. There are like 15 of them in just California. If you drive your car at the bottom of the hill and put it in neutral, it will proceed to roll up the slope and not down, as logic would dictate. There are apparently many of these bizarre gravity hills around the world, so it's obviously not exclusive to the Empire Mine Road.
Right. Yeah, these gravity hills are not exclusive to just the Empire Mine Road, though for Empire Mine Road, the association with the gravity hill is much more tragic than the others.
Yeah, and it has to do with the children that died in the bus accident in the 1950s. But first, I want to share an article from paranoiamagazine.com written by Olav Phillips telling a story about the gravity hill of Empire Mine Road. I just need to note, Paranoia Magazine, that's an interesting title. Alright, very believable. It was a quiet evening as we approached this mysterious spot. Armed only with our senses and a bag of flour, we placed our car into position at the base of a small incline near Antioch, and we gently dusted the back of our car with a thin layer of flour, which, we were told, would reveal the source of our haunting. Just be patient, it will happen, our guide alerted us, and just a few minutes later, the car began to roll. The car didn't move fast, but it moved with a slow, silent movement, slowly up the hill. As we crested the hill, our car slowed and stopped just as we'd been told. Eagerly, we ran from the car to inspect our trunk, and what we saw was swirls and scuffs as though ghostly hands had rested themselves on the thin layer of flour. Their voices gently carried on the all-too-common breeze of the area, and their message was just lost whispers. Gravity Hill is a strange place, nestled in the middle of a largely uninhabited part of Antioch, only a small distance from the legendary Black Diamond mines, whose haunting is the stuff of legend. But in this case, we found ourselves in the darkness, surrounded by fields and the wreckage of a former slaughterhouse looming in the distance.
So, why does the car get pushed? Well, the theory goes like this. In the 1950s, on a rainy day, a group of children were on a field trip and were driving along the Empire Mine Road. The bus lost control and ran off the road, crashing in a quote-unquote wash, leading to the deaths of all the children of drowning. The children of the accident are now eternally tethered to the location where they met their tragic fate, the Gravity Hill. Are the ghosts of the children pushing cars up the hill to prevent other motorists from what happened to them? Or is this something else at work?
It's pretty interesting. After looking up videos of gravity hills and doing outside research, I found an article on sciencealert.com that explains that gravity hills are actually optical illusions and are very elaborate illusions. The article says it's such a good illusion that you need proper equipment to really see the truth. Here's a bit of what the article states. Quote, "If you got some surveying equipment or GPS markers to actually measure the difference between the top of the slope and the bottom, you'll realize that everything is actually in reverse. The embankment is sloped in a way that gives you the effect that you are going uphill," materials physicist Brock Weiss from Pennsylvania State University told Discoveries and Breakthroughs in Science back in 2006. You are, indeed, going downhill, even though your brain gives you the impression that you're going uphill. But if a hill is physically sloping one way, so much so that cars actually gain quite a bit of momentum when they start drifting up, how could our eyes trick us so bad every time? According to psychologists, it's all about the horizon. Either it's obscured in areas with gravity hills, so we don't have a proper point of reference, or the horizon is there, but it obscures how the hill slopes in relation to the rest of the landscape.
That's really strange, but very interesting. So it seems like it's just basic physics at work. So I guess maybe that's all the gravity hill is. I can see how people will consider this paranormal because it sounds kind of creepy if you experience it firsthand. Okay, but there's also actually another supposedly haunted location I want to talk about. It is not really related to the Gates of Hell or the Empire Mine Road, but it is said to be close by, and it actually might have some historic documentation to make the claims legit. At least there's a grave. This involves the Black Diamond Mines and the infamous Rose Hill Cemetery. So, the Black Diamond Mines and the Rose Hill Cemetery sit north of Mount Diablo. Yep, you heard that correct. Mount Diablo. The Black Diamond region was once a coal mining community in the late 1800s to the early 1900s. With this type of community, there are of course going to be urban legends and ghost stories, considering all the negative aspects mining brings, such as black lung disease and mining accidents that ended the lives of many miners. So there is a legend that is the most prevalent, and that is the White Witches of the Black Diamond Mines.
We're really going on originality for this one. Why is it always white witches, ladies in white? What's with the white? Where are the witches in black? I'm missing the gothic vibe here.
Yeah, I feel like, even my hometown has a lady in white urban legend. So I guess during this time period of hauntings, I guess white clothing was in vogue.
It's like you knew you were going to die, so you're like, hey, let me wear white, so when I reappear, I'm going to be the lady in white, right?
They're just like, I just want to be pure.
Anyway, the spirits of Sarah Norton and another woman called Mary haunt the area. Norton was a midwife who died when her carriage fell over, or, according to some legends, she was thrown from one while she was on the way to deliver her baby. She was crushed to death. The day of her funeral, a fierce storm prevented the service. They tried again, only to have the same thing happen, and because of this, she was buried without a ceremony in Rose Hill Cemetery. It is said that her spirit is still seen there, hovering over the graves since her death in 1879. Mary was another infamous resident of the area and lived there also during the 1870s. She was a young woman accused of witchcraft because she was a nanny at the time, and all the children she cared for died of illness. The townspeople found evidence of her sorcerers, leading to her execution by hanging. She is seen guarding the mines, all in white.
So there's a clear discrepancy I need to point out that I'm sure some listeners are going to notice. So I have two versions of the story. Some say that Sarah Norton is not the White Witch. There's only one, and that title belongs to Mary. While some say they are the same spirit that roams the mines and the cemetery. Still, the legend is clear. There is at least one woman in white seen hovering above the graves at Rose Hill Cemetery, guarding the mines and wandering along the Summersville Road at night. So, is there any aspect of this that stands out to you that you can possibly believe? Or for you, is this kind of just urban legend and that's it?
The thing that strikes me the most about this is the lack of nuance. Like, all of this shit, there is nothing of specific that we can confirm that is...
Well, we can confirm the existence of Sarah Norton.
Okay, fine. And she's supposedly a lady in white, right? Or the White Witch.
One, if not, she was just a woman who had a tragic death, I guess.
Okay, so what I'm saying is we have one or two white women in white or white witches. We have a creepy asylum that potentially wasn't even fucking there. We have a slaughterhouse that just people put their fucking grains in. You know, like, all of this stuff, it seems so generic that it almost makes me feel like these are such easy things to make up. I think about where my grandpa has his country house, and then there's this forest, and there's this creepy little house in the forest, and I could easily attribute so much meaning to that. Generic meanings, like, she's the witch of the forest. And I feel like all of this reads so similarly to a kid wanting to attribute meaning to something where there really is none. And I'm not contesting that nothing of tragic happened. I'm just saying all of these things put together, like you said, and like we both said, are very stereotypical horror movie type tropes. They all sound tropey to me. There's nothing that sounds like an actual person, you know, who isn't like the stereotype, like the nanny who had all the kids who just died. So it's hard for me to believe genuinely any of this. Even pushing to my maximum, like the least cynical part of me, all of this to me sounds like crap. Really, just, I don't believe any of this. None of this to me reads as true. I think that behind...
What about the Gravity Hill? At least.
Gravity Hill, there are like 15 of those in California. I believe those, but I do think that it's science. I don't think it's children pushing cars.
So you do believe in the Gravity Hill phenomenon?
Yeah, I've seen the videos on YouTube.
Okay, so you do believe in...
Physics. Science.
Sure, but... Okay.
I believe in science. I don't think there's like a bunch of children coming back to help push a car.
I think being one of the oldest cities of California, I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
Then I can see why all these generic urban legends sprouted from it, being that it's an old mining community and, you know, it's closed down and it's desolate. So I think it creates a lot of imagination for people to kind of like create these to tell children. And I will say I think it's quite strange that there's many different things surrounding Antioch that I feel like it's like so many things, it makes it not believable because it's just so much stuff going on. But if you pick apart all this urban legend, I'd be curious to see what underlying fact maybe relates these paranormal stories and these urban legends, because they say urban legends are set to be built on something that actually happened. So
yeah, and the thing is also to determine whether the thing that actually happened isn't a tiny thing, because you know how towns work, right? a person will say, hey, I like the color pink. Next thing you know, next week someone will say, hey, she only likes the color pink and every other color can go get fucked. And that's kind of what happens with these little things. Like, someone will trip and cut their knee and someone's going to be like, did you hear Bill pushed Sarah and she broke her fucking kneecap? So, like, it's the kind of thing where even if there is a base story, is that base story big enough and important enough to support an urban legend? Because, you know, an urban legend, like, some real shit needs to happen for it to be considered an urban legend.
Right. Personally, I think it was closed down by authorities because of all the criminal activity that was going on there. There was a bunch of arson, and they were like, this is just not worth it. We're going to close it down. And I think with closing it down, it probably added to the hysteria, the hysteria. People were wondering, why? Is it really the criminal activity? You know. I would be curious to investigate this place to see if I get at least a sense of, you know, some paranormal activities, you know, going on. Like, I wonder if someone's going to throw a rock at me, you know, or like...
Yeah, I mean, as much as I don't believe any of this, as I think has been established at this point, I also don't think I'd want to go there. The same way that I feel about Ouija boards, it's like, I don't know what they can do. I don't necessarily believe they can do something, but I don't like fucking with energies that don't want me there. And I feel like overall, that's how I feel about this place. Whether the shit is real or not, I don't feel like I'd want to be in that area because it seems so repulsed by everyone. If anything of this is true, you know, getting your rocks thrown at you, screams, the bitch with the bloody knife, you know, like fucking floating over the graveyard, that to me just says, like, you're not invited. Don't come here. Yeah. And I'll respect the non-invitation. I don't want to come.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, plus I don't really like hiking, so...
Yeah, that'd be a problem for you.
Okay, well, I think that's a good place to close up shop here at Mephisto's Corner. If you have any recommendations for future episodes you want to hear us about that we can, well, that Ready to Glare can totally debunk for you, hit us up at mephisto'scorner@gmail.com, and or you can go to our Instagram at Mephisto's Corner.
And also, if you are watching / listening to us on YouTube, feel free to leave your comments down below, especially if you've had an experience at Antioch or somewhere that you think is comparable. We'd love to hear about it and read it in the comments down below, so feel free to let us know about that. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Cheers!